is going to go.
The beauty's in the editing, so.
Well, I'm going to try to not edit this.
Okay. Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
All right. So, hey, everyone, this is Dustin Pierce with Field Change Wilmington, joined with Emily Spencer, Field Change Wilmington, and Lee Sandlin with Sugartree Ministries. So we are doing this podcast in response to some comments we've gotten on our beautification project of Sugartree Ministries. So we started this project. I had this idea, told Emily about it. We brought it to Lee of just beautifying Sugartree Ministries because we wanted to make our downtown look nicer. And something else that we want to do with Field Change Wilmington is just help have conversations with people in the community. So there's a lot of grumbling, and it makes sense. But if we can just have those direct conversations and squash some of that, I think life can be a whole lot better. So hopefully.
Yeah.
So one of the questions we got is, Sugartree Ministries has a landscaping company. So why doesn't Sugartree Ministries work on their own landscaping?
Sure. And I'll go back. Let me give you a little bit of history in this. So I took over for Al Willoughby about 5 years ago. And then 5 years ago, we didn't have a landscaping crew. 5 years ago, our gazebos were out front. And so people would drive by and they would go, like, oh, why, we don't see these people. We don't see people out there and stuff. So when I became director, we had put together a project as far as what did we want to do as a ministry to be a better neighbor. And I think I told you a couple of years ago, maybe a couple of years even before COVID, we got interviewed by the newspaper, and, we had said, Sugartree Ministries, we want to be great neighbors in this community. We want to, what can we do to help? And so we noticed that the gazebo was an issue, and this will lead up to answer your question. But the gazebo was part of the issue because it was right out front, right? And so we're like, okay, we will move the gazebo to where it is now around the corner. That way, when people drive by, you know what I'm saying? We love our people, but we also understand when you're driving through downtown, you don't want to see, people, sleeping on a gazebo or some of that, the idea. And so we made a compromise and we moved the gazebo, and it led me to think about some things. Okay, what could we do, to be better neighbors in the community? And so we put together a list of items. And, one of them was getting cameras on the building, which was an expensive process. And so we raised enough funds, over the years. And then with COVID hit and it messed everything up, for a lot of years. But so we got enough money for the cameras. And then we had to get our ditches dug.
What was the cameras for?
Cameras just for security for everybody, like accountability for our folks, but also so the public felt better. If something were to happen, we could work with police and everything like that. And so far, the cameras worked out really well, and it's worked in both ways. Both the cameras people have accused some of our folks here of things we found out it wasn't true. And then other times we've caught things we found as a camera that we needed to help get people to police because they had some issues. So it worked both ways. It was actually kind of cool because a lot of times the police have actually kept people from getting falsely accused of things because they see the video and they go, oh, it wasn't what somebody said it was. So, it works both ways, and the camera's been good. We had to get our irrigation redone, so we dug up everything out here because it was flooding in the front.
There's a comment to that about the camera thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we did this beautification project. We dug out the old plants and set them aside.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to someone recently who was like, hey, thanks for what you're doing in Sugartree. But I saw some people, man, that were out there late at night stealing plants. And I'm like, I don't think someone stole any plants. What are you talking about? So I was thinking about it. I'm like, oh, what he's talking about is we set the pots out, the old plants out for someone to pick up at night. So they just saw that person pick up a plant at night and assumed it was a homeless person stealing something. So to your point about the cameras, it's definitely good to be able to verify when people are in trouble, when they're not in trouble.
The truth, like something that happened over the weekend. Like the idea is that we'll go back and verify it, call the police, talk to the police if we need to, and we get thumb drives, we send it to the police for both to protect our folks, and we want the truth to be known, protect the folks that we serve, but also the public, whatever happens. And so the camera's been really good. We redid our irrigation because it used to flood in the front here. So we had our whole front yard dug up because there's a flat roof. So it runs over the top and floods into the street and things like that. So we had that irrigation, all that drainage pipe redone in here. That was a second because it was a big issue, flooding the sidewalk, flooding into here. And then we got the building painted. Part of the beautification was to paint the whole building. We got new signage put up out there. And then during COVID, we did start doing more deliveries. Things got busy and stuff with that. And nonprofits only move at the speed of donation. So when somebody donates something, generally a large project like the cameras, like the new building, the new shelter, they earmark it. They don't want it for anything else. So when you're a nonprofit, you get something earmarked. You can't spend it on something it's not meant for, right? And so the idea is that when it's earmarked, so somebody donated for the cameras, but they want it for the cameras. They want it for the building, things like that, And so some of the funding we used to paint the building and to which volunteers did that. But in the irrigation, some of that, we had to use our own money for some of that and some of these projects. But then we started the landscaping company. But the landscaping company was designed as a project for them to go out and make money and work. And, they work by donation over that. But for those guys to make money and things like that. So ever since we started off the landscaping company, they've been out of the building, working. Now they mow our yards.
Mm-hmm.
Our guys mow and they pick up and they weed and everything like that. But when we originally dug up, because originally we had a guy that lived here with us that did all the flowers out front. He moved away to North Carolina, great guy and everything like that. And then we had trees in here, but those trees had to be dug up to do the irrigation because there was all the branches were going into the irrigation. And so we pulled everything up with the intention of putting in, flowers, doing things, which by the way, it takes a community. So thank God you guys came along, and I'm not going to fast forward the story, but you guys came along and helped raise funds to do this project, which is what it takes. It takes people that want to be catalysts for these kind of programs. But with all the other things we were doing and feeding people and, housing and buying new shelters with that, we didn't have the funds to do this project. Whereas you came along with a great idea to put together the public funding, which has made it happen. So once again, our guys have been out, we're booked, mowing, but those guys are out there to get donations from the outside to make money for themselves. And they've actually been able to donate back to the ministry, but it wasn't ever intended for them to, to landscape the property. We had a budget set aside for that, and we didn't have the money to do all that. And so thank God you guys came along and did that. You know what I'm saying? But it was that was a work program. It wasn't intended for them to do our landscaping in the in the front. Plus they mow and they mulch. They're not.
I was going to ask, like, what is the skill set?
Yeah. We do bulk mowing, mulching, things that they're not gardeners. They're not planters. That's not what they do. As a matter of fact, it's
okay.
Interesting. One of the guys that helped fund our landscaping company, who earmarked some of that money and everything like that, he said, he's basically like, they're not gardeners. That's not what they do. You know what I'm saying? Like they were designed to take mowers out and, mow empty lots and to do bulk mowing and things like that and do mulching and stuff like that, but they're not buying flowers. They're not doing that for anybody. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? They mulch and they do some bigger jobs, but their role is to go get income from, and, donations from outside, the ministry for their personal growth, for them to get back to work and get used to being in the workflow.
How big is the landscaping company? How many guys?
4 guys,
okay.
all the time, 4 guys every week. And then when they have bigger jobs, they add 2 or 3 more on the side. So, and then generally if somebody's, kind of, hanging around, they'll grab them and they'll get them part-time work and things like that. But 4 full-time guys, so.
Yeah, I don't want to be too soft on you, but I guess as far as the grass out front, that's always seems to be mowed.
Yeah.
And then the garden before, it wasn't horrible. It was just not as pretty as it could be now,
Yeah. And when we had planted some things in there, Cassie worked on us with that. But once again, we're talking about Cassie, we're trying to get Cassie some grant work so that to do the garden out back and that. Mm-hmm. But that takes money. She has to get paid for that time. She needs that time. She wants to give back, trust me, but she's got
yeah.
So once again, there's just not, the funding isn't there for that particular project, which was such an amazing thing for you guys to come along and get that project funded. So it takes a whole community. Like I said, we just don't have any money earmarked, for buying flowers and trees. It's just not something that was in our, if you look at our priorities as far as our budget goes, it's feeding, housing, clothing, that's our, to keep people alive in that capacity. When we love the beautification idea, and when you brought to us, if I thought there was any fear, I would have been reticent to the idea, but I love what you guys are doing. But it took somebody that had the energy and time and, the charisma to put into that. And you guys have done a great job with that. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
But like I said, but it's something that somebody had to come do because, every great idea is generally work for somebody else. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But it's rare to find people. And so thank you for not only having the idea, but then putting the work into the idea. A lot of people people come to me in the past and they're like, I got this great idea. And then it ends up just being worked for me and with a budget I don't have. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it's not that I'm against, I'm all for the beautification. It's just the idea that we needed somebody that was going to, we're working on a project right now, and I don't mean to get ahead of myself, but we're working on a project right now, just like a landscaping company. We're going to attempt we have a lady here that's one of our baristas. She's been doing this forever in the coffee shop. And so we're going to start a once a month, once a week, we're trying to figure this out, where she can train some ladies who are going through recovery to be baristas. And we're going to open up to the public again, once a week, once a month, and get them kind of on the job training, some accountability.
Nice.
And, but I needed somebody that wants to do that. I can have all the great ideas, but I needed somebody who wants to do that. Now we found somebody who has been a barista that now wants to do that.
Yeah.
So it takes those people that not only have ideas, but have energy that want to put into that and really have a passion for it. And so the beautiful thing about both of you is putting the passion in to the project, irrespective of your opinion of Sugartree, which I love that, which I do love that,
Yeah,
because you care about the community.
Yeah, sure.
But that article, I can try to find it for you, but that article, it's on our Facebook page that the newsroom did. But a couple of years ago, we had talked about this, about how can we be a better neighbor. So if being a better neighbor means it looks prettier, I'm all in. So yep.
Yeah. So I think so go back to the question, it's, Sugartree has this landscaping company. Why don't they do their own garden? I think some of the misconceptions of that question is not understanding what the landscaping company actually does.
Yeah, it's a work-based program. It's not it's not a greens or landscape. It's not it's called a landscaping crew, but it's not. It's
cutting grass and it's mulching.
Yes.
And as far as cutting grass and mulching, you guys take care of that on your property.
Yes, that's what we do. Yeah.
But it's not a garden company that does pretty flowers.
My guys are not going to. Yeah, they're not going to plant and grow and water and proctor. You know what I'm saying? Now we know that we agreed about that. Once we get this up and rolling,
mm-hmm.
We need to have people that do that. And so I'm excited for that opportunity for some people, but that's more engagement that people can have. We're hoping the public and other people that, want to come that are into this project will, want to be involved in keeping up the landscaping, things like that. And so, but those are just more opportunity for engagement,
mm-hmm.
not necessarily for my guys who are working, because they're working full-time. They're booked up for the summer right now. So which has been good. It's a blessing, but they're not, we need that funding from the outside to come for those guys, because we don't have the funding here to pay them. You know what I'm saying? To pay them all the time. So, yeah.
How do you think, this is kind of getting off topic, how do you think COVID affected the ministry? So I talked to some people in town who remember Joe's Java mm-hmm. and remember the music festivals and people coming in. This was a point of pride in the community almost.
Yeah.
First community, people would say, oh, this is Joe's Java. This is what we do. Mm-hmm. It's exciting. But since I've been, I've never seen that. Do you think COVID maybe made people disengage from the ministry and then problems have changed? And
Sure, and I think if you look at demographics and you look at what's happened, and there's no excuses, but the idea is that I told this in our podcast before, when I first started volunteering, I've been volunteering for 25 years. Well, 20 I volunteered, 5 I've been working here. 20 years ago, there were people that were town drunks, they were alcoholics, things like that. Some people on pain pills and things like that. But in the last couple of years, what has gotten brought into this country, and the places like as far as methamphetamines, and when I first started here, there was a lot of people on heroin, mm-hmm. but on heroin, people they get disoriented and they like pass out. You know what I'm saying? People on meth get aggressive and they stay awake for days, things like that. So I think the big transition hasn't been what we're doing here at Joe's. I think it's the idea that this epidemic has hit the country. Then I'll answer the COVID question here in a second, because it did change the face of the ministry. We saw more needs outside, meaning that when people got this kind of a lockdown, or whatever you want to call it, shelter in place, people were like, what do we do? So we put out a Facebook post that said, hey, if somebody can't get out, we'll deliver groceries. No touch delivery and things like that. So all of a sudden, we had done some deliveries around town, but now we were doing hundreds. And so one thing that the ministry changed to is that we started meeting the needs of people, even more people outside of the community and outside of, this area, but to a driving distance. And we kind of maintained that after COVID, where we do more of the to-go meals because people have places to live. But, we're not having hundreds of people come in here now, because during COVID, we had to limit who could come in.
Yeah.
We had to set up everybody 6 feet apart and all that. So our dining room didn't have capacity for 150. We only had capacity for like 30. Mm-hmm. And so more people got stuff to go, took it back, things like that. So we became more of a resource center, but not a community center. Now we'd like to get back to that. So I'm hoping to open the coffee shop to the public. I'm hoping to, we had worship here the other day. We had a concert. I'd like to have that back. So things like that, we're going to get back to some of our roots, but probably never back to where we were, because it's just a different time. If before we would come in and serve meals, when I was a youth pastor and I was here and I served meals, and it was kind of a, rural poverty, kind of thing with DHL closes with that rural poverty. And, you could feed somebody and then they would just leave, and it was, pretty good. And now the amount of energy and time it takes on an individual who's just addicted, mentally ill, things like that, and the mental illness that comes from addiction, we just spend so much more time and energy on each individual. Every individual is more difficult now than they ever were then. Before we were actually truly a soup kitchen where people would come in and just eat. But now almost everybody that we see that comes in off the streets, now we have a whole nother layer of demographic of people that senior citizens, elderly people and but those are the people we deliver to. Those are the people that we take food to, that place to live. But the people that come to our doors, typically, all of them are in that situation where they've been drugged down the rabbit hole of addiction and mental illness. And if you look at any professional work, and we could take forever on this, but psychologists and now, the amount of mental illness that is caused by these methamphetamines, if you're on them long enough, even if you're not diagnosed with mental illness, you become mentally ill, and some of that doesn't go away. When people burn themselves up, it doesn't change, sadly. Yeah. And for people that have mental illness, they also tend to treat it with street drugs, which is a whole nother issue. People that get undiagnosed, or like when Katie said in her podcast about people that kind of get left by who are mentally ill, who kind of get abandoned by their families. Yeah. And then they get to the streets and they start treating their mental illness with street drugs. Then you have a whole nother combination of people. And I think that's what's changed the most, is the drug abuse and the drug of choice and the potency of drugs that all across the country.
Yeah. Yep. It's definitely, so I used to be someone who's very against just the idea of the ministry, and probably you and your beliefs in general. So I think, but being like, talking to you, getting to understand the issues has changed my mind and has changed my heart about the whole thing. And part of the whole beautification project, the whole purpose is to it's not to have one funder, pay for the project and just make it look beautiful. Sure. But to get the community back engaged.
1,000%. Yeah.
It's exciting that you're going to open back up the coffee shop once a month and get the community back in the doors.
Yeah.
Like understanding the issues and how they can cause change.
Yeah. Just like my prayer is, just like the landscaping company, is that people come in and because they'll donate, but all that money will go to, and once again, we're smart about this. If somebody is going through recovery, we'll put it in like a savings account for them until nobody's going to get cash in hand from working, but the donations will come in from the public. It's a win for everybody. They get to come in. We'll have music here. We'll bring like live music, so that. And when we do that, the community can become engaged again, but they can meet some people. Everybody knows. Yeah. Nobody knows how much you care till they know what you know. Like they don't. Like nobody cares what you know until they know what you care. Sorry. Yeah. But the idea is that they'll meet some people, and hopefully their heart will be turned towards person, because those person will be working. But then that resource will become a new way for them to get back to work or get confidence going back to work. But it'll also bring the public in, and they'll get engagement, because when they meet each other, I told you a couple of years ago, which COVID kind of ruined some of that too, which is sad. I always say COVID killed community. It makes me sad. We're hoping to bring that back. But we had a couple community meals out at the park, a couple hundred people sitting there. And what was amazing is we had a couple hundred people come out. They would be sitting next to homeless people and drug addicts, and nobody knew it. Everybody's sitting there, but it's amazing because they never met. And so when people meet people, I think it softens their heart towards those people, and they realize they're not the evil, people that they think they are. And once again, it doesn't mean everybody's perfect. It just means that I think when you meet somebody, you realize that, we always have the story when I walk out the front door here, I don't know what people see because they're messed up people, but I've never been worried about anything outside the door or anywhere in town. I've never walked around and went like, oh, this is terrible, or this is so different than anywhere else. I think Wilmington's beautiful. I've said that many times. I think Wilmington's a great place to be.
Yeah. Any other things on this topic or this question, or?
No, but thank you. Thank both of you for taking the time to do this. And the idea is that it's something that's been in our hearts to do, but it took somebody with, like I said, with the energy and the acumen to do it. And so, like I said, that's what builds a community, though, is somebody come along. And there's an old story that I reading Rainbow. I love reading Rainbow. Yeah. But there's a story. It's been told a million times, but it's called Stone Soup, and I have a copy of it in my house and around that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Stone Soup. But the story goes is that there's travelers, there's different iterations. It's like an old German or Dutch stories of that. But anyways, these people are hungry, and they go into a town, and they create this ruse. And in the ruse, they go, it's been a long time since I had stone soup. So they get a kettle, they build a fire, and they start putting stones in there. And people are like, well, this soup would be really great if it had some carrots. And the town was poor. But somebody said, well, I got a carrot. And the other person's like, well, this would be great, but it'd be even better potatoes. And at the end of it, they make this stew, and it's amazing stew, but everybody even though they were poor or didn't have a lot of resources, everybody put in a little bit of something, and it turned out to be this wonderful soup, and then everybody ate. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So the idea is, I think the investment from multiple areas is really what we're looking for. Yeah. And so the idea is that hopefully this is a catalyst for people, like you said, to look at someone and go, oh, what's going on there? And, and I think maybe more engagement.
It's been cool on Facebook. Someone, people leave their comments and stuff. Some are nice, some are not nice. But there was some, I guess, accusations on our original post. I forget what actually it was, but we were able to engage that person with what we were trying to do. And they ended up like spending a couple $100 on some plants.
No, praise God, because I think the idea is, and I love like the beginning, because you know, talking about being worried about saying love or hate Sugartree. Once again, if somebody is, Jesus said, he said, if somebody's not against you, they're for you. You know, the idea is, so if somebody wants to make the community better, you know, I'm all in. And then whether you like me or not, or whether you like the ministry or not, if we're all working to build a better community, then I'm good with that. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to like me to make it more beautiful.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm good with that. Yeah. So I don't take that personally. I think that's a good thing if people have and I think the old saying says that, you know, if you made somebody mad once in your life, good, because you stood for something. You know what I'm saying? I don't expect everybody to love me or love the ministry. I think that'd be an unreasonable expectation, you know? So. Yeah, but I'm happy that they're engaged, and so like I said, you guys tapped into a whole different, you know, vein there with people that said, hey, I just want the place more beautiful, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, our mantra on the website is we are a community of empowered individuals.
Yeah.
So we'll end it there, I guess.
You're good. Yeah,
If people have any more questions, you can contact. I was making sure it wasn't dead. I'm sorry.
Good.
You can contact me directly because, again, we're a community of empowered individuals. So just reach out to them, talk to them. If I didn't ask your question or ask it the way you would ask it, so I'm sure you'll be welcome that.
Yeah, and every time I sit down, like we had our United Way interviews last week, so that I'm all about ask me the tough questions, because I want to hear what people have to say, because it's easier to make peace when you ask the tough questions.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Don't tiptoe around the questions. If you got a beef or something, say something, because you know maybe the answer isn't what you think it is, or like you said about quelling rumors, is that's the only way we're going to do it is by having honest dialogue, and you know the only way you get to the truth is through honesty at a very candid level.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks, Lee.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Thank you all. Yeah.
See ya.
Yeah.
I'm shaking hands.
So, yeah.
All right. Bye, guys.
You're all good. Yeah.